Thank you very much. Very happy to be here after so long times. I'm sure you have quite different answer, but you will talk about autonomy and you will talk about decision which cannot be predicted with pre-prepared data. Is it right? It would be something like that. But problems, have you seen the trouble with the Tesla car a few days ago? Tesla cars has made a strong accident, and the decision was taken by the car, but nobody in the street will decide the Tesla car is a robot. But since 30 years, we are all agreed that all big boat of the Odyssey of Space of Kubrick movie is a robot. Because it doesn't reply to the comments of the astronaut. So what are today the difference between an AR machine and a robot? Could you reply to that? Pierre Brice, for example? Anne? Johanna? Jérôme? Have you an idea? A difference between an AR machine and a robot?
Alterity?
Yeah. In fact, perhaps we can say, because it was measured, that if you augmented a part of your body yourself, you are extended in other tools than your body. You are still, oh, thank you. You are still in a machine. If you are, oh, I don't care. If you are augmenting somebody in your social space, even if it's very, very stupid in terms of AI tools, it will become a robot. But the decision is not in our cognitive long-term modeling, because we are in Grenoble, in Vaucanson. You know Vaucanson, an automaton. You know that robot is not a technological or scientific terminology. It's an artist terminology. And when Vaucanson has built his dock, nobody could guess that it was not autonomous. And we know that autonomous, between partially and completely autonomous, we know it's a continuity. It's not a categorical decision. And nobody, and people looking at the dock of Vaucanson could say, it's not autonomous. Nobody could say everything was predictable in the automaton. No, the subject looking at the dock could not guess that. But nobody was admiring the dock. Everybody was admiring Vaucanson himself. And nobody wanted to take the dock in the room as a companion robot. But today, there is something strange in a very categorical decision between object and robots without any technological discontinuity. Only the perception is very categorical discontinuous. And it's so strong that there was a very symbolic event a few years ago. It's very, very recent. In Europe, remember, there was a law which was devoted to give an electronic personality to robots. Japanese people were laughing a lot, but we didn't laugh. It was near to be voted. So the question we could address today is why today we have so much desire to this robot machine. And another question underlying that, because we address a so-named social robot today, but isn't it a tree hiding the forest, social robots? Can a robot be a robot without to be social? Isn't it an intrinsic, perceptive characteristic to a robot, even in the KUKA? Okay, you remember that very well. It's very old. You remember this guy where we're trying to make a crash test to this robot. Remember, it was still by Google owners, Boston Robotics. They wanted to show it's not a social robot. It's devoted to have a very good job to save people where there is no people, outside of people, in dangerous place, chemistry and so on. So they make the crash test. It's not devoted to be with humans, so he's careful not to be hurt by the robot because it's not programmed not to hurt humans. And remember, the very massive reaction. You are torturing this robot. They can even uprise. And they say, no, it's only crash test, like a car. It's a car. And it's not a communicative robot. There is no speak, have you remarked? And the second massive network uprising was, you give it the talk in order they cannot protest about the torture. It was very difficult because Boston Dynamics, Google has sold the company because of that. So what happened in this machine to declench? We haven't listened to the word empathy. What is empathy? Is it something positive? No. Empathy is only the ability to guess in their body of something or somebody in front of me what can be the effect of the feeling on the feeling of this body. So it's analogical projection. So there is very low level reason about that. You know the mirror neurons, very low level, but at high level, we can have very strong social cultural decision. We can completely erase the empathy. We can favorize the empathy, and we can decide with the empathy to better torture somebody, or on the contrary, to be very, very kind with somebody. So this decision comes from the living being. So a very good proof that is a very social decision is what we do with animals, and in English there is pet and animals. We decide in Europe that dogs are like a part of the family. In other parts of the world, we can eat them. On the contrary, the cow in India and French. And remember, it's not so long time that it took us to decide if there is some very similar people which could be classified in human being, and you know that now in biology there is no more so strong cues that species really exist. So what happened to Occidental people? What happened to us? Since today, on the contrary of Vaucanson time, we can make some funerals for demining robots. We can have some post-traumatic stress for soldiers with cobots, with war robots. And people working with industrial robots, people working on service robots, for which they really do not want to make them of them some social abilities. They cannot avoid people to guess, to perceive some social intention, some social personality, some social emotion, and so on, even if they really didn't want to put such kind of thing inside. Again, remember that Japan, it's very different. When a human make gymnastics together with a robot, the place of the robot has a prepared place in the social space in Japan, because it's more than an animist society. Sorry. And they have really not the same link with the robots that we have. So, how start the low level? Where and why start the low level step of the first empathy from something which has nothing in the form and so on to do with the living being, and suddenly we can declench, we can imply empathy to humans. So there is a lot of work about that, for example, for Bianchini from the behavioral object, and of course, you can go to the living being morphisms, anthropomorphisms, animalomorphisms, and so on. But even if you just start with speech, is something that was really, really long time studied by many people, so we have quite some few knowledge about speech, and we can say, for example, exactly, how can I do that? The sound is very easy to qualify. It's something to do with intimacy, something to do with positive attractivity, something to do in intention and so on. It's very easy to qualify it. And it's easy to show too that it can be associated like form like that. It can never be associated like form like that. And you can do that between the color, you can do that between the texture, you can do that with the sound, you can do that between the movement of everything. And you know that I'm coming from speech synthesis community, and we develop synthetic voice in very, very good quality since a very, very long time. But we could not make any good attractive user. I'm sorry, I'm sick. In fact, I'm very tight. I have some difficulties to find in my half brain awake the English word. We have developed since a long time. For example, Google has developed a very good chatbot since a long time, but it was not used by people massively. And it was only when, and you could use your chatbots on all your device. You can change the device. It was there, near of in the very, very short proxemics, impossible to move. And since they have put the voices inside this very, very, old-fashioned loudspeaker, they have sold a lot of chatbots. Alexa has exponentially increased in terms of selling. And the only change was this loudspeaker from which we can change the proximity. We have to go to there. It is embodied, and you can move. You can decide your proxemics with that. And the voice, you have remarked perhaps that all the voice now in chatbots are very, very intimated voice. I cannot perform it with my voice today, but it's a very relaxed vocal body. And in the same time, people have more and more relation, exponential relation, a number of relations you cannot have with your implemented body, with a lot of people around the world, and the signal of the body disappeared. So in the same time, we have intimate relation with machine, and at the same time, we have no more intimate relation with people. So perhaps it tells us some sign about us. What is the meaning? Just a very obvious thing, you surely know that. Communication, not speech only, but communication, proxemics, gaze. We work together, we are doing something together, we are working together in the way we move, in the way we talk, in the way we do everything together. We are communicating, and not to communicate is to die. At long term, but surely you die. So there was a very, very famous experiment. It's verified now. If you take 6 babies, you don't touch them, you are not in link with them. Of course, you don't talk to them, but not only, that's not the only cue. They die. And it was repeated, unfortunately, into the right experience. In Romania, in Tunisia, in orphanages, you can note in cardiac surgery that if you are not in nutritive human relation, you have 5 times less chance to die. For elderly people, we will talk, we will listen to elderly, about elderly people this afternoon. When they are not in nutritive link, they die. So perhaps this very strange thing that we call robot today, to want to create, to augment our social space, somebody else, another one, and not anymore my way to be in the world. Perhaps it's a very important event to ask us questions about what happened to us. What happened to us in our human and more generally living being relations. So are we, and we can have a lot of evidences about that when we go to people labeled to be frail people, like, for example, elderly people. We can, because of elderly people, we have even be able to measure what can be a degree of isolation. And isolation is not a question of quantity of people, it's a question of feeling of isolation. Like food, it's not only to not have enough food, it's also to have junk food, bad quality food. So what could be the robot a solution, and for what? And if it is a strong solution, it can be a strong danger, like a pharmacon. So what can it be? So what we propose, that could be cognitively exactly the same system that we have when we have a arm cut. We have a very big suffering because we have no more harm. And if you just had a mirror like here, because you have the illusion of your missing arm, you feel better. It could be the same. You are suffering a lot because you have no more other or no good relation with other. So the mirror robot could be something which can help you not to suffer. Is it a good thing? Is it toxic? Or is it helpful? Like morphine, I'm quite convinced. You say I'm strong. I'm very sorry because I'm really not clear today. But it's still clear that, yes, I have strong conviction, opinion, hypothesis, which is mainly that we cannot now today decide and predict what will happen. We don't know. Like for morphine, we had to wait for coevolution into the wild very carefully if it becomes a danger or if it becomes a solution. It is a solution in certain conditions. In medicines, it's very often used. It can be very dangerous in other conditions, you know that. And perhaps it's the same for robots. So I have listened just before about the dominance like a very big dimension, very important dimension. And dominance, when there is a lot of empathy, is something which is very powerful. So what we try to propose is to go in altruist technologies, that is to avoid any dominance and to avoid any negative production, but negative not in the decision of the robot, but negative perceived by the human at long term. So we started a few years ago by some experiments, as you said, like in the wild experiments. That is, people implied have no idea about what happened to them, and we have used some very small non-lexical words. It sounds. It's not language. It seems to be nothing, but it comes from 20 years of studies, and after this experiment, we show that the low level of this sounds are completely similar, share some invariant with animals, human to animals communication. And if you very progressively send to the human when there is some functional thing done by the robot for the human, it just gives feedbacks with the sound. If it does not give any feedback, nothing happens. If it gives feedbacks chosen like that to be non-dominant and progressively increasing the proxemics, progressively increasing the intimacy, and progressively increasing the intensity of what you give as intentional positive goal to the human. You start with things like that, and after things like that, and after things like that, and so on and so on and so on. It's really not chosen by others. People change. And what we remark is that if we more you put the robots with more and more isolated people, more you take time to attach, to make glue with the people, but more longer they stay with the robot without to try to make anything else than to talk with the robot. The human makes a comments. The human knows perfectly that the robot is stupid. He cannot understand the comments. But the human said after that it's good for her to say things to the robots which is not able to understand. Just to talk to something else that ourself, that herself, but not a human being, a real living being. And what was more interesting was that if we, after a certain degree of gluing, of attachment, if you make some error with the robot, if you do it before the people reject the robot, if you do very strong error of navigation after having attached robots, on the contrary, the frail people, she's as frail as mine, she has difficulties to walk, here she has no more difficulty to walk, and she helps the robots. And more she helps the robots, more frail is the robot, less the frailty of the person is a problem for a person. And more she feels confidence is herself. So you see, it's another way to talk about confidence, not confidence into the robots, but the confidence because of the robots in the humans, for the human in herself. So the robot technology was developed as all the technology in the Graal to have a very perfect functional tools. No error in the function we have to address. Is it the way to do the robot? Because it's not anymore to augment our body. It's to augment our social space. And our social space, perhaps, in the very strong, in the very little pieces where we fail, perhaps here is a good quality of relation. So in which kind of error can we, what are the good errors and the bad errors? How can we give a not healthy body, very high-level technology, young, with big eyes, very, very, okay? You have seen all the robots. They are bright, they are young, they are very solid and so on. Is it the better way to address the robots to people? If you go further, to go outside from only the sound, all the body, and not only the part of the body devoted to communicate, but everything you do doing some function with your body, you will change it in the relation with the robot. And it's something very, very dynamic, the relation. You talk about, Tommaso, you talk about proxemics, but do you think it would be the same thing when you have met a robot every day since 1 year? You have quite like a relation with the robot, so you change your way to when you say hello to somebody the first time, and when you say hello to him 2 years ago, 2 years after, perhaps the same hello will not have the same meaning inside the relation. And just to address methodologically the fact that I'm not sure that we can simulate a user, because what we tried to do was exactly the same, but asking to people to do something in which they don't know. We will observe how they move with the robots. They don't know we observe them for the robots. They think they are doing something else. When we are not sending replay at the beginning, they did not have any replay for the robots. They do signal like that. They create their own signal. When they are in intimacy, because the glue of intimacy did work, you see all the body is like a vocal truss, very lax, very smooth. And when we ask people, what did you do for asking to the gesture, they say, oh, it was to ask the robot to come here. How did you do? And she is convinced to have done this gesture now. And she has worked for 1 year to define the best gesture to order the robot. And she was completely perturbed when she realized that she did not perform the gestures that she thought she was convinced to have done. The same for this one. She's Japanese. So, how to command a robot to go somewhere? Now she's glued. She's in relation with the robot, no dominance, altruist, and so on. Very smooth, like the vocal thread. Hello, hello, okay? And she's convinced to have done that. So if she were aware about what she were doing, she would have done the third one, not the first and two one, and so on. And if you go now in the navigation of the robot himself, so navigation is a functional ability. It's not devoted to communicate, but it was demonstrated for people working together that by the way we work together, we ask us something, depending of the role we have, depending of the personality we have, and depending of the history of our relation. And what we try to do is to decline all the possibility of speed, acceleration, and second degree of the jerk, the derivative of acceleration, like with the voice. Not the word, but everything else. And we address all these adjectives, not coming from anywhere, but coming from a lot of previous studies, in particular in telepresence studies, with voice and with gaze and so on. And it was because of COVID, it was not possible. Philippe did this work. Philippe here did this work. He could not make this work into the wild in ecological situation because of COVID. So it's a very, 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 very weakness signal, because it's a stupid video, nobody's implied, I am in front of my computer, I see that, and I see things like that, or things like that, and I'm supposed to inform these adjectives. Every person, I don't remember, but many people, a lot of subjects, they say, I cannot replay. You even get an insult. Somebody say, we pay a lot of CNRS people to do that. I'm very unhappy about that. Very stupid thing. But the results are very good. They have no idea they can choose, but they choose. These very, very weak signals are very powerful. As usual, in our social space, devil and God are in the details. And something to conclude. Just an experiment with this very, very ugly robot. You see, there is a couch. It's a very, very low level robot. Compare it with another kind of dressing, less technological, higher level of look. And what is very, very interesting, we work with these people since 9 years. So they are not in the wow effect. And sometimes they know we worked with them on the co-construction of the robots. Sometimes they are completely in other, their attention is completely put in something else. And what is very, very interesting is that they can say the story. And what we propose now is that we need to have very, very long-term, ecological, not into the lab, ecological experiment with robots which will really be devoted to live with people, that is developed by industrial people. We will sell it a lot, not our robot, which we sell only 10 of our robot because it's not our job to sell it. So we really need to work with people from industry to accompany, to be with them for very long term. And perhaps we could say that the experiments will start when the robots will be inside the building, inside the family, inside the team, a job and so on. And it's the only way to decide during the co-evolution that we need to monitor very carefully, like morphine. It's the only way to say, to answer, is it meaningless? Surely not. Because we will not have created this world at the place of automata. Is it helpful? Is it toxic? And who will decide that? Not the researcher we are, not the industrial you are at home, not the users only. Who are the users? Because there are so many different people in a nurse home, for example, so many different kind of responsibility. So who decide? All together with the idea we don't know. We will just start step by step, very humbly, very humble, ready to try to understand step by step, and never forget that everything is holistic. Perhaps we are very, very good in the speech and language, but if we forget the gaze, not to control the gaze is not to give information, is to give an information in the wild we don't know. So it's better to be very, very low level, but in every place of communication, and without to forget that what is devoted to communicate is not the more important to communicate.